want to transition over to schools.
Yeah.
Like influence, how much influence do commissioners have with the Board of Education? And then also, like, for you, like, where do you stand, with virtual versus in-person learning? And, I don't know, how much influence, commissioners have with, the BOE. So educate me.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Board of Education, they more or less are like their own entity and stuff like that, but you want to have a collaborative relationship between the commissioners and the Board of Education, because a lot of times, I mean, we represent the constituents, and so, absent any other information, they're probably going to reach out to constituents and say, hey, I'd like to see this, can you look into it? And so that's where you kind of have, whether it's the Board of Education or, even state matters and stuff like that, you're kind of like the liaison for that. So I look, and look, you've run businesses for years. I've run businesses for years. Like, even with your own leadership team, you don't get what you want.
Right.
Like, I mean, and I've always been like a big advocate for, like, you should be hiring like your team of rivals. Like,
Right.
I'm very much like an ENTJ, DI. If you look at like Myers-Briggs or this kind of personalities, like a numbers person. I'm like a driver. I'm the person that, like, I mean, I meet every single criteria that, like, when I read a magazine, I go to like the back of it first. I mean, like every single like kind of checkpoint is there, but if you really want an organization to be, run well, you kind of need someone who, like, complements the things that maybe naturally I don't have. So
Right.
more of like the, would be willing to make, more of like a leap of faith, or kind of like, kind of lead from the heart, so to speak, and all that, where I'm much more like a data analytics, like,
Yep.
kind of, do the math. So I think that there's that inherent like give and take between maybe the commissioners and the Board of Education and, other, kind of constituents. But I'm a big one of, having the debate in a public forum, having, voicing, both sides of it, and voicing opinions, stuff like that, because, that's where you get the best ideas, when you have differing opinions. But, especially once you arrive, like, what the solution is, and it should be one of these things that once you arrive at the solution, like, you lock arms and you say, hey, like, we're on the same team and we do this going forward. Like,
Yeah.
you don't then, take the newspaper and say, hey, I don't like this person for doing this.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I look forward to, kind of, collaborating that way, because that's what I've been doing for, 25 years in my, in professional world and stuff like that. Now, as it applies to, to kids in school and stuff like that, I've said this all along, and, it's, my personal opinion on it, not that, like, you can influence the, the board or whatever the case may be, but I've said this all along, that I honestly believe that kids should be in school, and you should try every single means possible to, to put your kids in school. And I even before like any data was out there on it and stuff, like the risks and whatever else, I just felt like that, having a, at the time, my 14-year-old daughter, behind a computer and stuff like that all day, like, you just know that there's something not right about that.
Yeah.
And so, when it came time to make decisions about where she was going to go to high school, she was graduating 8th grade last year, and was planning on going to high school this year. This is the first time in her life where, sorry, this phone's going off. It's the cell phone tower. This is like the first, chance in her life to make a big decision. It's kind of like, where you want to go to high school is, first big decision, and then it's college, and then where do you want to live, and what job you want to have, and like,
Right.
So I'm a big one for, like, these are the milestones you have to make decisions in your life. So, she was basically looking at 3 schools, Haddonfield, Paul VI, and Bishop Eustace. I'm, an Irish Catholic kid. I was raised Irish Catholic. I went to Bishop Eustace. She was started out at Catholic school down in Baltimore, then went to Christ the King. And when it looked as if in person was not going to happen with Haddonfield, I mean, quite honestly, we just said, all right, well, we have to find, alternative means of education, and which we did, and it's worked out well. But I mean, I think this is kind of like a chance to learn that there are schools that are making this work even within our own network here. Christ the King has found a way to make this work, and to me, it's a good opportunity to say, like, in business, you always look for like a pilot program, or always look, to benchmark someone else that's doing, something. And if you're at the Board of Education level, or you're running a school and there's a school right down the street that's finding a way to make it work, if it were me, around like mid to late September, I would be calling, Ann Hartman at Christ the King and saying, how you make it work? Like, what kind of filtration have you put in place? Like, how are you spacing the kids? How are you doing this, that, the other thing?
Right.
How are you handling the remote people who can't make it to school? I've said all along that, like, I think that it should have been, 80%, like you need like an 80-20 solution, right? So like for, 80% of the kids, the families, the teachers, and all that would not be affected by it because they don't have a pre-existing condition, or they don't have a family member at home that's a pre-existing condition, or they're not maybe at the at-risk like age category or something like that. But you have to be respectful of the fact that like 20% probably do have that. They may have a parent at home that is susceptible to it, or a husband, or a wife, or a loved one, or something like that. So, to me, it would be the perfect solution would be, finding that ground to get 80% of the kids in school, or 85%, whatever works out to be. And then you have a different lever, to pull for the remainder there to say, how do we have like a smaller group of people, a smaller cohort program, and you have more intense education for those people to make sure they're not kind of left behind by having a large, classroom of people behind computers and stuff like that. I think we're kind of getting to that space now, which is good. But to me, probably should have been done months ago.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and planning and all those things. I mean, obviously, when Corona first came out, I mean, we had no idea, what was going on, what was happening, and hey, lock it down, and but once as we started figuring out and how everything was working, just like you said, I mean, private schools have figured out a way. I mean, there's no reason why us as a town or any other town for that particular reason can't figure out a way too. I think it certainly is an essential job for sure. And Haddonfield's known for education. That's one of the reasons why people move here is for that. So having that in-person learning is going to be very important, I think, to the success of this generation.
And think about it this way. So, our line of work was considered essential services, and like I said before, I mean, some of our sites are sites that are tasked with our national security. I still have a top secret clearance because of some of our customer sites. We had to develop we didn't have to, we developed a 14-page, safety / back to work, standard operating procedure for our business. Like, I didn't know how to do this. I mean, it was basically like, that you're tasked with this. You have to kind of find like, what is available in the market? What's the best practices? What can you do from an air exchange standpoint, or, filtration and stuff like that. And you start, putting these things together, and it forces you to learn and forces you to put these things together. But it's important because my employees are going on job sites that they have specific requirements and stuff like that. So we have to make sure that they're adhering to it. Then they'll come back to our office that may have specific requirements. And I think if you approach it from the standpoint of we want to try and keep things as normal as possible, and like how do we do that, and how do we leverage the best practices in the market, like that's where I think you can kind of move the needle much further, much faster.
Sure. No, I agree. So. To be a commissioner takes time, right? I mean, I don't know what, the average time commitment that, that you've talked to other commissioners or people that have served in the past in terms of like how much time is required on a weekly basis. How do you, run a full-time business, having a full-time job and, being involved in other charities and stuff like that, and also, making time to be a commissioner? How are you going to be able to, make time and be effective?
So I would say that from like the charity standpoint, from some of the boards I sit on and stuff like that, those are things that you may have to take a look at and say, hey, some of these things have to fall by the wayside because I just don't have the time for it and stuff like that, which is okay. I mean, people like roll on and roll off of boards all the time. So so that's one item there. The other thing, like, and I've been like, I've said this for years, that like if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy. I mean, like I've known you for a long time, Mike. I mean, like everything is Excel spreadsheet driven and calendar driven, and like no sooner we having a conversation, you're like texting me like some calendar invite and some other sort of nonsense like that. But like, I mean, but it's true that like, I mean, you're a busy person, so you say, all right, well, like, we're gonna work on this for 2 hours, and and we're gonna put on the calendar, and we're gonna commit to those 2 hours. To me, it's about like, especially when you're dealing with, when you talk about like, any sort of like, item you want to put in place. Let's, talk about, like a vibrant downtown or something like that,
Yeah.
If you say like, we're going to get like a coalition of people who want to work on this, and you identify those 8 people and you put, these things in place saying, here are the parameters around it. And you say, we want to have this, by this date, and you start putting like, what's critical to success. Critical to success is we want to have a plan for, number of seats out in front of restaurants. We want to have like an awning plan. We want to have an events plan, and we want to have like, so here are your parameters. So team, go and put it together, and then we're going to meet like a month from now. I want to see this in, a PowerPoint presentation. Like in our line of work, we do like what's called like an A3, a strategic A3. It's called like a 9 block by their names. Like these are like tools that like Nissan uses and stuff like that. But like when you put these things in, in place and you say, here are the parameters, and we want to have a report out and it kind of looks like this, it removes the ambiguity, and it removes like the tugging at the heartstrings and stuff like that, and turns it into, this is like why why we want to have this in place and how does we want to do it. And you basically said it, we're going to have like some sort of debate about it and stuff like that. But like at 8 o'clock tonight, we're voting on it, and we're going to put this in place. And maybe we'll table 20% of it, we'll put the 80% in place and then say, let's revisit the remaining 20% next month. But those are the kind of things that, I think if you run government like a business, you'll find time, you'll make time, because you're not treading water every single day, just kind of like, hypothesizing all the things that can be done.
Right.